Good morning. We are in the Rambam Hilchas Tumas Meis. Perokim Gimel. We're going to discuss a couple of halachas in Perokim Gimel. Halacha Hey, Vav, and Zayin. So we know that there is a concept called Ohel Hames, which is a tent, which is called a Ohel. And when the person finds himself in the same Ohel as a dead person, under the same covering as a dead body, so the halacha is that usually becomes tamei. However, there are certain exceptions. He talks about a bird flying over I would assume it is a flying carpet or whatever, a flying towel, and a boat that is on the water. It is moving on the water. So these don't create an oil, and Lashon Rambam and Perokim Gimel Ohel. Even though they went over the dead person, but it's not an oyel hamiskayim that stays because it's a moving oyel. The lashon, the next halach is, however, if you tie the boat with something that'll keep it, then it will be oil. And then he continues in Halacha Zayin that if you have a piece of wood that's floating on the water and there's a tumah under one part of the wood, the other side, and there's kalim on the other side, under the wood, which would be an oil because the wood is covering it. It's tahor, the kalim are tahor. So he writes, Shaharei kvar biyarnu, shasvina hashota eina mevi'it atum. We just said that a boat that's moving on the water does not bring tum. All right, so we see here that a boat and a board floating on the water does not create an oil. However, if you tie it down, please by a boat, it works. All right. This is a Mishnah in Masechtas Ohel, Perek Ches, Mishnah Hey. I'm not going to read the Mishnah. However, the Mishnah has a new part which the Rambam omits. And that is Rabbi Yossi comes along and says, Habayis v'hasvina shebesvina einay mevi esatuma. The house that's in the boat, that neither is considered an oil for tumah. That's what it seems to say. Now, what is a house on a boat? Is it a boathouse? No. Generally, comes along the Rambam and says that is, I think it's the captain's quarters on the boat. Could either be where he works, where he sleeps. There are names for that. But it's basically the captain's quarters, where he is on the boat, the place that's set up for him like a little room that he has on the boat. So what's the shaila on this bayis shebesvina? There are many different explanations because it's a problematic halacha. First of all, what does Rabbi Yossi hold? What do we hold? So the Rambam says like this, that Rabbi Yossi holds, the Rambam in Pirish Mishnayos over there, that since the Sfina is moving, so Rabbi Yossi holds that this house is considered just like a moving Sfina. And therefore it has no status. It's not considered standing in one place. The house as much as the Sfina. Now, where is the dead body? The Rash assumes from the Rambam, and he is correctly probably so, because the Rambam seems to indicate that the dead body is not under a boat. It's in the house on the boat. But that house is not considered a house. That's abuse. We disagree. Rabbi ends up being a look at abuse. Now, there are other approaches as to what it means. One is, obviously, according to Rambam, the hard part is to understand Rabbi Yossi's logic. Others say that it's talking that the house is part of the boat and it's going over a dead body. In other words, the dead body's in the water. Then the question is, what's the Kiddush? What's it different than the regular boat? Others say, no, the same as the Rambam says, but that this house on the boat is not very sturdy and won't survive any, not a hurricane, but even a strong wind or any normal wind that comes on the ocean. So he says, and the question on that is, what does it have to do with the Smina? What does it have to do with a boat? Yeah, look, any tent that doesn't last. Others compare this to a halacha that we find in Masechet Shabbos and in Hilchos Tumah, which is that if an item is put into another item, for instance, a egois, a nut, is put into a vessel, and the vessel is floating on the water. So the halacha is, what's the halacha? Do we go according to the keli, the vessel is floating. But go according to the egois is not floating. And if somebody picks up the egois on Shabbos and moves it from Rosh Hashanah, in other words, he takes it from there, what will be the halacha? That's in Rosh Hashanah. He moves it into Rosh Hashanah. Will it be considered? The Gemara remains with a suffix. Okay, so those are the different approaches. But nevertheless, the Rambam's approach we saw. All right. Let's analyze a little bit. Why didn't the Rambam bring this to Ba'yishab B'Sfina? Especially, Rabbi Yossi has an opinion, and he says, "Ain't halacha Rabbi Yossi," so let him say it, and then say very young that a Sfina is no good at Ba'yishab B'Sfina, that it's a Chiddush. And that's especially the way he learns. That body could be in the house. Okay, so you'll tell me it's obvious. Not so obvious. I don't know, it's not so obvious. Because in other places, the Rambam talks about such cases, and these cases appear in the Gemara. Ba'yishab B'Sfina is not a unique case over here. In Hilchos Mezuzah, the Rambam writes, Sukas Chag B'Chag, Ubayis Shebesfina, same Bayis Shebesfina, Keturin Min HaMezuzah, they are put, Einan Asuyus L'diras Kva. Because they're not made, they're not made for a permanent dwelling place. Okay, if you read these words, it would seem to indicate it is a dira, but it's not a dira's Kva. But it's a dira. So why wouldn't it be enough for Tumah? Where the Rambam gets his halacha from is not clear. Because the Mishnah just writes the halacha and doesn't bring a makar for it. And those who the Neisei Kalim on the bring a Yishalmi, that it seems to indicate that there is no mezuzah in those who travel in the ocean. but it would seem that it has a Shem Dira. Okay, so could be, since it is a Dira, just not Kla. So you could theoretically say that the Rambam didn't have to say anything because once it's a Dira, it's an Ohel. But I know that Dira and Ohel are synonymous. In Hilchas Shabbos, this halacha also appears in Erevin. We have an Erevin. The halacha that when you start measuring tchumim, you measure from a bit of a distance from, if there's a house 70 amos away from the 70 plus amos away from the city, you start from there. It means that the city is extended till there. What happens if there is a bit of a little river right out there and there's a boat on the river and it has a bayis shebesvina? Do we consider that an extension of the city? The halacha is no. So you have a Paskin's Perokim, halacha dal and Hilchas Shabbos. So you see that's not a Shem Dira. However, Rashi learns it's not the concern of Dira. The concern is because it doesn't stay within 70 amas. It moves. That's Rashi pamim shehu v'teich shivim leir pamim sheina. However, the Meiri doesn't learn like that. The Meiri learns since it's not kavua, it doesn't have a Shem Dira. And others learn like that. Others want to learn that Rashi learns like that. So it's not simple that that the meaning there is that it's not within 70. Could be doesn't have a Shem Dira, so that would be contradictory to what he writes in Hilchas. What he writes the first case that we mentioned, which was in Hilchas Mezuzah. Okay, then we had this halacha, but here you read the words of the Rambam. It's interesting. The Rambam writes, Pergim Yud Gimel Halacha Daled, that shaila that I mentioned earlier. A person was standing, let's say, in Rosh Hashanah, and he went into Rosh Hashanah, put his hand into Rosh Hashanah, or reverse. V'natal misham mayim al gabe guma, no good. But im hoya kli tzof al gabe mayim, there was a vessel floating on the water, upeiros b'toich hakli, and there was fruits in the kli. Upashat yodai v'lokach min hapeiros v'hoitzi potter. So Halacha says clearly, being in a station, in a moving vessel, you're also moving. However, if you analyze what the Rambam says, not so partial. Because he doesn't say it's not good because it is moving. Since the peiros itself didn't go on the land. They're in a keli. The keli, in other words, I'm not getting into now Hilchas Shabbos because it's not our place. But Makam Bala Makam Chashivus. The Rambam seems to be stressing that a keli that's moving lacks a chashivus of a Makam Abba. Doesn't mean that the keli doesn't have a book. The keli has a book. The keli won't have a won't help. A moving keli can't make our book. So it's a different situation. Not a concern in the stationary status of the peiros. It's a concern in the chashivas of the makom of the peiros. In Hilchis Shiur Avos Hatuma, a similar shaila comes up. The Rambam brings a sheretz, which is tamei, was in a kli, and the kli is floating on the water, or whatever, with other options like that. So there he says, and what's the gay? And the gay, this fake, we should say, Yochid Tamei. Now the Maramshik in Nozir Daf Samach Dalet says that there are those who say the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos. It says it's not stationary, and in Hilchos Shiur that says it's considered Munach Halacha, contradictory. And he gives a beautiful explanation, but again, the Rambam's not saying it's not talking about stationary. Talking about the lack of stationary takes away chashivus. Really, if you can't bring a right in there. Okay, so we're really still in the quandary of what is the halacha of Bayis Shebesfina when it comes to Masmes. Another issue. Why did the Rambam write the halacha of Nesser, the board that's floating on the water? What does that add to our discussion? I mean, if according to the Rambam, the house, I mean, he got through saying that a boat. Sorry, going down, they said that a boat is not considered is not considered stationary. So why would we think that a board is different? That he has to tell us. It's obvious. And he says, so if it's Karbiano, we don't need to repeat it. Then why are we repeating it? Okay, I'm gonna. I think it may be according to Rabbi a simple answer. Chedush Chaim Perikid Aleph Halacha gets involved in this discussion, and he says there are two halachas. Something called an Ohel Zaruk, a Ohel that's sort of on top of something that's moving. And Rabbi makes a chiluk between Ohel Zaruk, meaning when you put an oil on a animal that's walking, or when like he gives a case of a harness and what you put to be able to sit on the animal, and things like that, or board across from the animal. Now, we once gave a share on this concept by Ohel Zaruk, and there are times that the Gemara says in Hilchos Shabbos that oil, this type of oil that's on an animal that's moving, is considered an oil, even though it's Ohel Zaruk, as opposed to a boat, which is not an oil. He says a very interesting thing. I'm paraphrasing what he says. That there are two dinim, which is, he doesn't say it there, but that's what he's saying. There's a ohel and there's a mahil. Meaning like this. There are things that you have to judge, are they an ohel? The things you have to judge, is there an act of mahil? Meaning, does it actually consider that this was mahil on something? So he wants to say as follows: Ohel Zaruk is a shaila. Is it a shem ohel? Definitely mahil. It's a physical item that's going, and this is laying on that physical item, and therefore it is considered sort of a ohel. But the question is, do we call this an ohel since it's on an item that's moving? Then there's a second concept, which is a spina or a talus nefes, or a magic carpet or flying carpet, whatever. Do they have a din of, and that's in other words, something that's not on anything, in itself is a moving item. Do they have a din of not oil? Are they considered mahil? And he wants to say that that's the chasaron there is not in the shem oil, it's a chasaron in it being mahil on something. It's not considered mahil because it's never there. It's not kavua. It doesn't really stand over the dead thing. It's just moving past it. That's not called being mahil. Whereas an oil zarg is in his words, in the words of Reb Chaim, and then in the hefts of oil. And he wants to say that because a svina lacks in being mahil, therefore anything on it can't be considered being mahil on the mess. Anything in it is also not being mahil because it's constantly moving. Okay. In other words, over the thing that's it's passing. But one thing's for sure, if that's the word, that it's a din in the mahil, the way the Rambam and Pirush Mishnayos learns, there's no shaila that it's considered an oil. It is being mahil over the mace. That mace is stationary. The oil is stationary. It's not even a shaila. Doesn't even get into the discussion. Abiyasi argues and says, no, it's not only a chesaron in the mace, it's a chesaron in the oil. As if the bias is also on the water. But the Rambam clearly doesn't learn like that. As Reb Chaim is mechiach, that's not the way the Rambam understands it. It's in the mile, not in the oil. And therefore, it has nothing to do with Hilchis, Mezuzah, or Shabbos, or anything, or Shorah is Atumah. None of that, because that's all it did in oil. Here we're talking about mile. It's a different halacha. No shaykhs anywhere else. Oh, perhaps if that's true, why did Rambam rise the din of Neser? Because he's coming to tell you that it's not because of Chesaron and Ohel. Why? Because if not that, we could have learned Svina is a Chesaron, that it's not Kavua, therefore it's not lacking in its oil shop. It's lacking in being an oil. But that would be good in something that's supposed to be Kavua. In other words, it has a status of a Ohel, standing, a house, a Svina that could stand, as you can tie it to a place, and it's made to be tied at a time. It's made to stay in one place. Because hey, when it's moving, it's lax in its oil. But you can't say a Neser lacks in oil because it's moving, because it's not really supposed to be an oil. That's what a Neser is made for. That's what happens to be now. It's being mile on something. So it could be that by saying the din of Neser and adding that it is Kvar Biarnu, he is telling you what the Chesaron is, that it's the Chesaron and Mahil. Once it's a Chesaron and Mahil, there is no reason for the Rambam to explain that a bias is the way he understands it, that the mace is in the bias, and therefore that there is even a shaila what to talk about. Because that's definitely being Mahil. And that's why the Rambam doesn't bring it. But Akapanim, that Mahalach, that's the Chesaron, separates this from all the other cases that we brought in this halach. Everybody have a great day. Atzlocha. Rabbi. And we will Seid gesund und stark.